Buddhist wisdom answers, why do we live, knowing we will die? We all share one undeniable truth: every being, great or small, noble or ordinary, will one day face the same destiny, death. We can avoid it, ignore it, or comfort ourselves with dreams of immortality, yet deep down, we know, the clock of life is silently ticking down. And yet, how mysterious it is, each morning we still rise, brush our teeth, pour a cup of tea, send loving messages, plan for the future, and nurture what we know will fade away. It seems that deep within every human heart, there burns a quiet flame that refuses to go out, even in the darkness of impermanence. So why do we live, knowing we will die? This is not merely a philosophical question, but an ancient ache of the human soul. Sages, monks, poets, and philosophers have all stood before this same question, in the silence between two breaths. Buddhism does not seek to soothe this fear with blind belief. Instead, the Buddha invites us to look directly into the nature of life and death, as one gazes into a still lake and sees one's true reflection. For only when we truly face death can we begin to understand the meaning of life. He taught, only by understanding death can one know how to live. To understand death is not to fall into sorrow or despair, but to awaken, to see that the fragility of life is, in fact, a gentle call to mindfulness. If we knew tomorrow might never come, we would love more deeply today. If we truly saw that all things fade, we would stop clinging to them. And when we stop clinging, we begin to taste freedom. Death, through the eyes of the awakened, is not an enemy, but a teacher. It teaches us to treasure each breath, each moment, each smile that still exists. It shows us that everything we call mine, this body, these feelings, this fame, wealth, and even the relationships we hold dear, are nothing more than clouds. Drifting across the sky, they gather, and then they dissolve. Buddhism does not see life as a race toward eternity. It teaches us to live fully in every fleeting second. Because it is in the fleeting that true beauty appears. A flower blooms and withers, and that is precisely why it is beautiful. A song ends, and that is why we listen with our hearts. Likewise, it is because death exists that life becomes precious. If humans never died, would we still cherish each other? Would we love, forgive, and care as deeply? If time were infinite, would we still strive to live kindly? To grow in understanding, to awaken? Death may terrify us, but it also awakens us from the dream of illusion. It reminds us that all plans, all ambitions, all achievements have limits. And yet, within those limits lies something limitless, the awakened mind. When we look deeply into the nature of death, we see that it is not an end, but a transformation. Like a wave dissolving back into the ocean, it does not disappear, it returns to its true source. So it is with us. The body fades, but the stream of consciousness and karma continues to flow, transforming and evolving. This truth is not meant to frighten us, but to awaken us, to remind us that every thought, every word, every action we take in this life is shaping the path of what comes next. Thus, we live not to escape death, but to prepare for it, by living deeply, mindfully, and compassionately. The Buddha once said, "The one who knows they will die, truly knows how to live." For when we no longer fear death, we finally begin to live. Death is no longer a full stop, but a comma, opening the next chapter in the journey of consciousness. And in every moment of mindful living, we are planting seeds of liberation, so that when this body dissolves, we will not cling, nor regret, nor fear, but smile, like one returning home. The question, why do we live? Knowing we will die, does not need an intellectual answer, but an awakening in experience. When we truly live, with gratitude, wisdom, compassion, and peace, the question itself dissolves. For one who is truly alive no longer fears death. And perhaps, that is the deepest secret of Buddhist wisdom. Not to conquer death, but to awaken fully within this fragile, fleeting life. So when death finally comes, we are not startled, not regretful, for we have lived, fully, mindfully, and freely. If you feel a moment of stillness within these words, pause. Close your eyes. And take a deep breath. Let the ancient question, why do we live, knowing we will die, become a gentle light guiding your path. And if these reflections have touched your heart, share your thoughts below. Perhaps, through your words, someone else may find a little light in the darkness of their own life. Let us continue this journey together, exploring the wisdom of the Buddha, the path of understanding, serenity, and liberation. Subscribe to Buddha's Wisdom Journey, for stories, teachings, and moments of meditation to help us live more deeply, more mindfully, and more freely amid the impermanence of life. In Buddhist philosophy, impermanence is not a tragedy, it's the pulse of existence itself. Everything that lives, moves, breathes, or shines is in motion. Every sunrise is already fading into sunset. Every birth carries within it the quiet whisper of death. And every meeting is, by its nature, a beginning of a goodbye. To the untrained heart, this truth may sound sad, even frightening. We spend much of our lives trying to hold on, to youth, to love, to comfort, to success. We build houses, careers, identities, and dreams as if they could last forever. But then, one by one, the things we cling to slip through our fingers, like sand no hand can hold. Buddhism doesn't ask us to deny this, nor to despair. It invites us to see clearly. Because in seeing the ever-changing nature of life, we begin to understand what peace really means. Impermanence, anicca, is not a curse, it's the quiet teacher behind all transformation. Without it, a seed would never become a flower, a child would never grow into an adult, and no pain could ever turn into wisdom. Impermanence is the hidden grace that allows everything to evolve. Imagine a leaf falling from a tree in autumn. To some, it looks like an ending. But to the earth, it's a beginning, a return, a renewal. That leaf nourishes the soil, which in turn feeds the tree, which again gives birth to leaves. Life is not a straight line, it's a circle, an endless dance of coming and going. When we begin to see life this way, death no longer appears as something cruel. It's simply another movement in this great rhythm of being. As the Buddha said, all conditioned things are impermanent. When one sees this with wisdom, one turns away from suffering. The pain we feel doesn't come from change itself, it comes from resistance. We suffer not because things end, but because we wish they wouldn't. We cling to what is meant to pass, and in doing so, we blind ourselves to the beauty of what's still here. There's an old story told in many Buddhist traditions. A monk once asked his master, "Why must everything change? Why can't we keep the moments of happiness forever?" The master smiled and poured tea into the monk's cup. He kept pouring, until the tea spilled over and soaked the table. The monk jumped back. "Stop. It's overflowing." The master nodded gently. So is your heart. You want to hold on to joy, but joy too must flow. If it stayed still, it would no longer be alive. That story captures the essence of anicca. Life, by its very nature, moves. To try to stop it is to fight the river that carries us. But when we stop resisting and learn to flow with it, a quiet peace begins to arise, not the peace of control, but the peace of understanding. In the West, we often associate happiness with stability, a steady job, lasting relationships, predictable outcomes. But Buddhism turns this idea upside down. It says, true peace doesn't come from holding on to what changes, but from awakening to the truth that everything will change. And in that acceptance, there is a freedom deeper than any pleasure stability could bring. Think of a sunset. Its beauty lies precisely in the fact that it doesn't last. If the sky stayed orange forever, would we still find it breathtaking? It's because we know the light will fade that we stop and watch it, our hearts softening as the colors melt into night. Impermanence teaches us how to love. It reminds us that the people we care for won't be here forever. So we hold them a little closer. It reminds us that our own lives are brief, so we stop wasting time on anger and pride. It teaches us to say, thank you, while we still can. To live with the wisdom of impermanence is not to live in sorrow, it is to live awake. When we stop fearing change, life becomes a miracle again. The laughter of a child, the warmth of sunlight on your skin. The sound of rain against the window, each moment is a gift that will never come again in exactly the same way. To see impermanence clearly is to realize that every moment is precious precisely because it will pass. In this way, the awareness of death doesn't darken life, it illuminates it. Knowing that everything ends makes us more compassionate, more present, more alive. The Buddha didn't teach impermanence to make us hopeless. He taught it so that we could find a deeper joy, a joy not built on the illusion of forever, but on the truth of now. When you truly understand anicca, your relationship with life changes. Success no longer inflates you, and failure no longer crushes you. Gain and loss, praise and blame, pleasure and pain, they all become waves on the surface of a vast ocean. You still feel them, but you no longer drown in them. You begin to live with a lighter heart, knowing that whatever arises will also pass, including your fears, your sadness, and your doubts. And in that understanding, the mind finds rest. That rest is what the Buddha called nirvana, not a place somewhere far away, but the peace that arises when you stop clinging to what cannot be held. So, what does impermanence ask of us? Not to turn away from life, but to embrace it more fully. To love deeply, but without possession. To act wisely, but without attachment to results. To live fully, knowing that each breath is both a beginning and an ending. When you walk through life with that awareness, everything becomes sacred, even the moments of pain, because you see that they too will pass. And one day, when death finally comes, you will meet it not as an enemy, but as an old friend. You'll smile, because you've already practiced letting go, moment by moment, breath by breath. In the end, impermanence isn't something to fear. It's the heartbeat of the universe reminding us that nothing stays the same, and that's exactly why everything matters. So take a deep breath. Feel it rise and fall. This, too, is impermanence, and it is beautiful. When we truly understand impermanence, something extraordinary happens. We begin to live more honestly. There is no longer a restless desire to reach something, no longer the fear of losing, no longer the desperate effort to prolong happiness or avoid pain. In its place arises a quiet stillness, not from resignation, but from clarity. We begin to see that everything is constantly moving, whether we notice it or not. This body was once a child, then an adult, and one day it will grow old. Every cell, every breath, is a process of change. Emotions are the same, anger flares up and fades away, joy arises and then quiets down. Nothing within or outside of us lasts forever, and it is precisely this truth that makes life so alive. If the universe never changed, it would grow rigid and lifeless. If a river stopped flowing, it would rot. And if our minds stopped learning, releasing, and transforming, they would become heavy and blind. To understand impermanence is not to accept loss with cold detachment, but to see the deeper truth hidden within it. Nothing is ever truly lost. Everything only changes form, like water turning into clouds, then returning as rain. In this great flow of existence, there is no end, only continuation. Death, then, is not a full stop, but a doorway to transformation. When someone we love passes away, they do not completely disappear, their energy, their kindness, their memories continue to echo within us, within what they have left behind, within the way we live on. Thus, impermanence is not merely a law of physics, it is a profound lesson in compassion. When we see that everything is passing, we become gentler with others. We no longer want to hold someone tight just to keep them forever, we simply want to love them deeply while they are here. Someone who truly understands impermanence does not say, "Stay with me forever," but rather, "Thank you for being here now." From that awareness, love becomes pure. It is no longer about possession, but about companionship, brief, yet complete. Like a flower that blooms only for a moment, its very fragility is what makes us weep for its beauty. The world is fragile, and precisely because of that, it is precious. Those who have experienced loss often understand this truth most deeply. Only when we lose someone, something, or a certain chapter of life do we realize how sacred every ordinary moment truly was. Then impermanence ceases to be a philosophy, it becomes a living truth engraved in our hearts. We may cry, we may ache, but if we sit quietly with that pain, something miraculous happens, we begin to see the nature of disappearance. We realize that within loss lies a new kind of love, a love without conditions, without attachment, a love that transcends time and form. And when we see the world through the eyes of impermanence, everything seems to shine brighter. Morning light is no longer just light, it becomes a miracle. The breeze against our skin, the song of a bird, the glance of a stranger, all of it becomes sacred, because we know that each of these moments exists only now, and never again. Those who live with awareness of impermanence no longer seek happiness elsewhere. They don't chase permanence, because they have realized that it is the impermanence itself that makes life beautiful. If everything were eternal, we would stop feeling anything. If flowers never faded, we would forget how to cherish them. If people never died, we would never know how to love deeply. Impermanence gives meaning to every emotion, because we know that nothing lasts forever. When we realize this, we begin to learn how to let go. Letting go does not mean losing, it means seeing that there is nothing to hold. When the hand clenches too tightly, it cannot receive anything new. When it opens, the whole world expands. Letting go is the path to freedom, freedom from fear, from expectation, from suffering born of attachment. But true letting go can only arise from deep understanding of impermanence. And when we look back, we see that all our pain comes from forgetting this truth. We suffer because we cling to the past, worry because we try to control the future, and despair because we want the present to stay still. Yet the present never stays still, it flows, softly, like a river that never returns. When we understand this, we begin to smile, a quiet smile before change, before aging, before loss. Not because we no longer care, but because we see that amidst all these changes, there is something unchanging, awareness. That awareness is the source of peace. It does not get swept away by the tides of life, it simply observes, accepts, and embraces all transformations. A person who lives with awareness of impermanence stands on the shore, watching the river flow, seeing everything, feeling everything, but no longer being carried away. When we truly understand impermanence, fear dissolves. We know that every sorrow will pass, every wound will heal, every storm will fade. Nothing lasts forever, not even suffering. And within that constant motion, there is always room for renewal. Each sunset marks the beginning of another dawn. Each closed door opens a new path. Each death gives birth to new life. The universe never stops breathing, and neither do we. Impermanence, then, is not merely a Buddhist teaching, it is the heartbeat of existence itself. If we live in rhythm with that heartbeat, we no longer fear death, for we see that death is only another breath of life. We no longer cling to what was, because we have already lived fully in what is. And when we live this way, not grasping, not resisting, simply being, we begin To experience what the Buddha called nirvana in this very life, a peace untouched by circumstances, a stillness found right in the middle of life's endless change. Impermanence takes nothing away from us, it only takes away the illusion that anything could be held forever. And when that illusion shatters, what remains is something pure, the present moment. The present is all we ever have. Not tomorrow. Not yesterday. Just this breath, where everything is born and dies, where joy and sorrow rise and fall like waves and ocean. When we understand this, we stop asking, why must everything change, and begin asking, how can I live fully while everything is changing? And perhaps that is the true path of wisdom, the path of those who walk with light hearts. Clear eyes, and a serene smile amidst the endless transformations of life, the wisdom of impermanence, finding freedom in letting go. There comes a moment in life when we stop holding on, when our hands no longer grasp, our hearts no longer demand, and our minds no longer resist change. In that very moment, we begin to understand what true freedom means. Freedom is not the ability to do whatever we want, but the peace of no longer being bound by what we fear to lose. Those who live with the wisdom of impermanence know that no matter how tightly we cling, everything must eventually pass. And because of that, they choose to love without possessing, to live without calculation, to give without expecting anything in return. When we understand impermanence, fear begins to dissolve. Fear of loss, of change, of pain. All fear is born from the illusion that we can hold on to something forever. But when we see that life itself is a flowing river, how can we hope to trap its water in our hands? Instead of clinging, we allow it to flow, and in each drop that passes, we glimpse the beauty of existence. The wise do not fear loss, for they know that nothing is ever truly lost. Only transformed. A falling leaf does not vanish, it becomes soil, nourishing the tree so that blossoms may bloom again. Likewise, the things and people we love do not disappear when they leave. They simply take on new forms in the great continuum of life. We are born, we grow, we age, and we die, not as a tragedy, but as a natural rhythm. Death is not the end, but a doorway into another form of being. What truly brings sorrow is not death itself, but our refusal to face it, our unwillingness to accept that it, too, belongs to life. When we accept death, we finally learn how to live. For we stop wasting our days under the illusion that time is endless. We love more deeply, forgive more easily, let go more gracefully. Every word, every glance, every moment becomes precious. For we know that tomorrow is never guaranteed. There is a kind of peace that arises only when we have touched the depth of loss. When everything collapses, we finally see what truly matters. When there is nothing left to cling to, we discover the most unshakable foundation within ourselves, the knowing mind, the mindful awareness that is never swept away by change. It is within that awareness that we find nirvana in everyday life. Nirvana is not some distant place, it is a state of being where the mind is no longer chained by greed, anger, or delusion. When we no longer resist the truth, when we can smile at change, when we can see beauty even in impermanence, that is nirvana blossoming in each breath. In truth, life never takes anything away from us. It only teaches us how to love without condition, how to let go without regret, how to live without fear. Every loss is an invitation to return closer to our true home, the place within us where nothing can ever be lost. Someone once asked, if everything is impermanent, what is real? The answer is awareness. All forms change, body, emotions, thoughts, circumstances. But the awareness that perceives them remains unchanged, like the sky that stays vast and still even as clouds drift by. When we live from that awareness, we no longer identify with what rises and falls, and nothing can truly make us suffer. To understand impermanence is to awaken wisdom, but to live it is enlightenment itself. Only when we deeply realize that nothing lasts forever do we stop running and searching. We rest in the very flow of change, as a wave rests in the ocean. The wave may dissolve, but the ocean remains. Every moment in life is an opportunity to see impermanence. In a child's laughter. In a wilting flower, in a drop of rain on an old rooftop. We need not seek it elsewhere, just pause and look closely, and we will see the constant dance of birth and decay all around us. Those who understand impermanence live more slowly, not out of laziness, but out of reverence. They listen more deeply, knowing that every word may be the last. They look upon life with gentle eyes, knowing that everyone is walking the same fragile path, carrying the same fears and longings. To live with the wisdom of impermanence is to stop needing to win or prove, and instead to understand and share. We no longer need to hold on, for we see that all things are only temporary guests in the house of life. When the heart truly absorbs this truth, the world is no longer frightening. Death is no longer darkness, but a homecoming. Loss is no longer a tragedy, but a reminder of the beauty of existence. And suffering, instead of being the enemy, becomes a kind teacher, showing us where we still cling. Impermanence is life's deepest teaching, not merely to be understood, but to be lived. For only when we fully accept change do we free ourselves from sorrow. All lasting happiness begins with acceptance of impermanence, and all enlightenment blooms from the heart of transformation. In the end, as we look back, we will see that every pain we ever felt came from resisting change. But when we open our hearts, release our grip, and allow things to come and go as they must, we become one with the great current of life, light, peaceful, and whole. For impermanence is not a warning, but a gift. A gift that teaches us to live authentically, to love deeply, and to let go gracefully. And within that gift lies what humanity has been seeking all along. Peace, found not beyond change, but within it, living fully, without fear. There's a simple truth that most people try to avoid: no one can live forever. Yet only when we dare to face this truth do we begin to truly live. Buddhism doesn't teach us to run away from death, it teaches us to look deeply into it, to understand life itself. Because only by seeing the end clearly can we cherish each remaining moment as it truly is. Every morning, when we open our eyes, it isn't just another ordinary day, it's a miracle. A chance to love, to understand, to forgive, to begin again. We don't know if another sunrise will come, and so this day becomes more precious than ever. In that awareness, we awaken not just with our body, but with our whole being, mindful, alive, and tender. To live fully doesn't mean doing as much as possible, achieving endlessly, or collecting countless experiences. Living fully means being fully present in this moment, whether it brings joy, sadness, loneliness, or peace. It's living not as though we'll live forever, but as if this is our last day. Not out of fear, but out of love, deeper, quieter, more real. When we truly understand impermanence, fear loses its power. We begin to see that death is not an enemy, but a teacher. It teaches us to let go of what's meaningless, to stop chasing illusions, to pause and breathe deeply. And to ask ourselves, what truly matters? That simple question is a doorway into profound wisdom. Buddhism says, it is not death that is frightening, but a life lived in ignorance. We fear death not because it hurts, but because we've never truly lived. When life is filled with regret, pretense, and endless roles we play, death feels like an unfinished story. But if we live each day with awareness and gratitude, death becomes only another chapter, quiet, gentle, and natural. The awakened person doesn't live to stretch time, but to expand consciousness. They understand that one mindful breath is worth more than 1,000 years lived in delusion. They measure life not by length, but by depth, by how deeply they are alive in each moment. To them, living is meditation, walking is meditation, breathing is meditation. Every action is an expression of awareness, simple, light, yet profoundly sacred. Living fully means daring to look at all sides of existence, joy and sorrow, birth and death, gain and loss. Not turning away, not denying, just quietly observing and accepting. When we can smile at fear, it dissolves. When we can sit with pain, it turns into understanding. And when we dare to love within impermanence, that love becomes eternal. Someone once asked, if everything passes away, what's the point of giving it our all? The answer is simple, because it passes away, it's worth giving everything. The most beautiful flower is the one about to fade, because we know it won't bloom forever. The sunset is most radiant just before it disappears, because we know it won't return soon. In the same way, this moment is precious precisely because it will never come again. When we live mindfully, even the smallest act becomes sacred. A meal, a breath, a glance, each holds infinite life within it. We don't need to go far to find happiness. Happiness is already here, waiting for us to pause long enough to notice. The peace the Buddha spoke of is not something we gain after death, it's something we can touch right now, in this very breath, when the mind stops running or clinging. When we can embrace life as it is, however it changes, we have already found nirvana here and now. To live fully is not to live without fear, it's to live with fear, yet remain calm. To recognize that fear, too, is impermanent, it comes and goes, like clouds drifting across the sky. We don't have to push it away. Just see it, understand it, and smile. Once we understand fear's nature, we see it for what it is, a passing shadow of the mind, not the essence of who we are. In truth, what pains people most is not death itself, but the feeling of not having truly lived. Many only begin to live when facing loss, when time runs short. But the awakened ones don't wait until then. They live as though every day is a miracle, every breath a blessing, every gaze a gift. And when we live this way, death no longer frightens us. It becomes a gentle continuation, like a wave returning to the sea. Nothing truly ends, there is only return. Return to stillness, to boundlessness, to the pure essence of being. So let each day be a short hymn of life, a moment to be grateful that we can still breathe, love, and feel. Let each moment be a small meditation, a return to the present. Whispering softly to ourselves, I am alive, right now. Perhaps the most beautiful thing a human being can do in this brief existence is to live deeply, clearly, and kindly, not for fame. Not out of fear, not for gain, but simply because we are alive. Before death, an awakened heart does not shrink, it opens wide to love. Because love is the only force that transcends death. When we love, life no longer belongs to this single body, it expands into all things, touching eternity. And that is the quiet, yet greatest victory of all, to live fully, while we still can.